Coming up on this episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover.
As long as we can get past the wildcard round, mother of God, we need to get that monkey off our backs and get to a divisional round for the first time. I don't know how.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We're at the halfway point of our division preview series as we take a look at the AFC North. We've got a great guest joining us, Jimmy English from Gaelic Gridiron, returning. He's going to give us the inside track on the Pittsburgh Steelers and also talk a little bit about how preparations for the NFL's first regular season game in Ireland are coming along for in September, and we'll break down the Steelers and all that's been going on in Pittsburgh before myself, Joe, and Byron look at the rest of the teams in the AFC North. But gents, how are we doing? It's been a while. Like, we've not actually recorded for a few weeks because I've been away on holiday. But how are you both doing?
Great, yeah. It feels like it's been ages actually since we recorded. Yeah, pleased to get back to it. Yeah, it's been so long. When I was doing the podathon yesterday, I was like, "Oh yeah, we're starting our State of the Division series soon," and we are 3 in.
We've had 3 out at the time. Yeah.
Yep.
The Scott Fishbowl.
But the recorded, it feels like forever ago, but it's only 2 weeks. It just feels like a long time.
It does, which you were fantastic on as well. Shout out Byron on the Scott Fishbowl podathon as well, which is kicking off today. Well, it's kicked off, I suppose, a little bit. The slow drafts are kicking off, aren't they? And then we've got some of the live drafts that have been happening and that will continue to happen through the next week or so. Joe, how are you getting on?
Yeah, doing well. Just been really busy, and it's a summertime out here as well. So it's just lots going on. But it's fun to talk about another division, which is always intriguing, and you never know what you're going to get from certain teams. Looking into it, so it's a fun one to do and get to the halfway stage.
Excellent. Well, let's just jump into the first team then, because we've got our guest joining us. So let's throw it over. We've got Jimmy English from Gaelic Gridiron over in Ireland joining us to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. First up, in our AFC North preview, we've got returning guest Jimmy English from Gaelic Gridiron joining us to talk all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Jimmy, the last time we spoke to you, it was the day after the Super Bowl, and we talked about Dublin and Ireland getting its first regular season NFL game. So it's been a few months. Welcome back. How are you getting on?
Yeah, God, I can't believe it's been that long since the Super Bowl, Paul, since we last spoke. So much has happened in the past few months. I mean, the year is now, we're halfway through the year. We're getting closer to that big game in Croke Park in a few months' time. So it's an exciting time to be an American football fan in Ireland and in Europe in general. I mean, you look at how big the sport has grown in this side of the pond in the past few months. So look, always a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to talk Steelers football with you.
Excellent, good stuff. And we are absolutely going to focus on the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we do need to kind of give a shout out to the great work that you've been doing. All things Gaelic Gridiron going well, and you've been spending the last few months. And I remember when we kind of were ending our conversation last, you were saying you were about to hit the road, covering kind of the AFI season. We're nearly at the end. How has it been domestically in Ireland, Jimmy, this season? And I suppose we're coming up to the end. What have we got to look forward to in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, God, I mean, it's been such a hectic few months, but such an enjoyable few months, hitting the road, covering the domestic league. And it's been has been one of the best domestic leagues ever, I think, competitively wise. But at the same time, I am a little bit relieved that it is winding down. It is a lot of work. But I love it. I really love it. I love getting out on the road and meeting the teams and seeing some great quality games and really top quality players that are in this country. So as you say, we are now, I mean, the semi-finals happened last weekend. This weekend just gone. The Belfast Trojans, who've been probably the top team in the Shamrock Bowl conference this year, they are headed back to their first Shamrock Bowl since 2019, I believe, since before COVID. So they are the heavy favorites this season to claim that, and they're squaring off against last year's champions, UCD, the students out there from South Dublin. So that's going to be a really good game. UCD haven't quite been as strong as they were in previous seasons, and I think that's down to something that they often suffer is a kind of a loss of players because of the college. The college year is over now, and a lot of their students go home or they go back down the country and they can't make it to games. So, but they've maintained, their their right to defend their title. So that's going to be a cracking game. But then in Division 1 as well, in the Heart Bowl, you also have a really intriguing matchup. You have the Louth Mavericks up in my neck of the woods there in Dundalk. They fell at the final hurdle, or the second last hurdle last year, where they lost to the Dublin Rhinos in the semi-finals. They shot themselves in the foot a lot of silly penalties, and they really were they bet themselves in that game. So they have redeemed themselves this season. They bet the Crusaders there on Saturday as well, and a scoreline of 64-0. An absolute rollicking there in Dundalk Rugby Club. It wasn't even close, and they've done that a few times this season as well. So they've been the favourites all season long for the Heart to lift their it could be their first title. I'm not entirely sure. I'll be getting some angry text messages after this to say no, it's actually our second. But look, it's going to be a great weekend. It's a triple header there in Athlone. You have, of course, the ladies' flag football as well, taking almost centre stage. The inaugural Claddagh Bowl final will be held down there. So look, it's Irish American football is just it's on the rise. It's and with the attention that the sport is getting here as well, it's only going to keep getting better and better. So it's a great time to be involved in the sport here.
Yeah, and it just almost seems like every few weeks there's something we saw. And I've just come back from holiday, but while I was away, I was sort of seeing again up down in Dublin, the guys committing to their colleges. One of the guys is committed to Penn State.
Yeah, Adam Gibbs.
Adam Gibbs, yes, committed to Penn State, and there's just so much going on in Ireland, which is fantastic.
I think this college season we're going to have something like 15 or 16 Irish lads playing college football, Division 1 college football in the United States. Adam Gibbs, the biggest commitment to date, and look, it's incredible to see, and like things like that, they really bring the sport to a whole new audience. And look, fair dues to Tig Leader and Leader Kicking for what he's done, tapping into that potential as well. So I'm gonna be locked into college football every weekend now, starting in August with our own college football game here. But it's great to see, and like I say, it opens up the sport to a whole new avenue of supporters and a whole new audience, which is great.
Yeah, it is a pipeline now in Ireland.
Yeah,
I think I can describe it as that for sure, because of just the numbers of guys going over and playing in college, and we've seen it. See a couple of guys in the NFL last year as well, and I think it will only grow and only get more, and we'll see more of these guys there. And the best way to follow it is follow Jimmy, follow Gaelic Gridiron.
Absolutely. And the work you guys are doing is fantastic as well, and I think it's so important now to have outlets like ourselves that are on the ground. They're covering it from a fan's perspective and really kind of raising the profile of the sport on this side of the Atlantic. I mean, American football in Ireland, the UK, and Europe is at an all-time high. It's peaking right now. We have the Dublin game this year. We have the first ever game in Madrid. I have a feeling next year the NFL are going to have to go to France. They're going to have to go to Rome. So we're going to be. My missus is going to hate me because I'm going to be in 3 different countries, 3 different weekends come September and October, November. So
there's a good way to sell that, Jimmy. There's a good way to sell that. All these cities are great places for your partner to go as well. So
absolutely,
yeah. Speaking, obviously, the headline and the highlight of this year for sure is the Dublin game, the game at Croke Park. How are kind of preparations going in Ireland for kind of that first game? We saw the tickets only went on sale a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? It was crazy. How are preparations going?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the completely expected fiasco of tickets where we were sitting in line for 6.5 hours, I think I logged in at 11:30 like everyone else and got in the waiting room, and there was something like I don't know, 66,000 people ahead of me or something like that, or something ridiculous. It was probably even 10 times that. I can't even remember. But like it really shows the demand and the passion that is there in the Irish market and the wider European market for these international fixtures. It's great to see. I mean, the majority of people who I talked to did get tickets. If you're listening and you didn't get tickets, don't worry, there will be more. They haven't put the Hill 16 hasn't gone on sale yet. And look, the closer you get to game day, there'll always be tickets floating around, so don't give up hope just quite yet. But look, it really there was such a hype about the tickets going on sale, and then we're less than 3 months away now. So I expect the anticipation and excitement to keep building and building as we get closer to September 28th. I heard a rumor, and I don't want to get in trouble now, but I heard a rumor that there will be a fan zone, an official NFL fan zone in Dublin, just about a 10-minute walk from the stadium, from Croke Park. I know the league does those kind of things. In London, they go down very well. So I think it's Fairview Park, perhaps. So keep an eye on social media for more news about coming soon about that. I know potentially some Steelers players will be over. I know that they're starting training camp in a few weeks, so they might be making their last couple of visits to Europe and this side of the pond before that kicks off. And look, I think once we get into August, really, well, we have preseason games at the end of this month. I believe the last weekend in July we have our first of 3 preseason games. So it really is the last month without football. So look, we just expect the excitement to keep building, but like I still can't believe it's happening, and I don't think I'm actually going to believe it until I'm standing on the sideline in Croke Park and we're listening to Iran Nafeem play before the game. So look, it's going to be incredible. I really, really can't wait.
Yeah, it is going to be a special moment for sure. And sadly, we're not going to be there. I say we're not. I'm not.
That's a pity.
I'm in Sweden, so that weekend,
Okay,
sadly, it's
fair.
just the way it fell. It fell, which is a shame. But I'm going to be there for the college football game, which is always great.
Yeah. I mean, we've almost forgotten about the college game. It's almost been overshadowed now. And I remember I was actually talking to a few of the guys from Aer Lingus college football recently, and they're not happy that this game is less than a month after their game. They were hoping for it to be further out.
Yeah.
But if you didn't get tickets for the NFL game, still plenty of tickets on sale for the college football game. Like it's a Big Ten game. It's a rivalry game. It's Iowa State, Kansas State. It's Farmageddon. There's gonna be an incredible atmosphere there as well. The Aviva Stadium is always great for college football. I can, having been there several times over the years. So look, we really are spoiled for choice in Ireland now this year with 2 massive international American football fixtures, and I think we're going to have into the future. There's going to be at least 1 college game every year. I definitely don't think we've seen the last of the NFL in Dublin either.
Oh yeah, no doubt. With even just the demand you've seen, they'll be back year after year. Jimmy, do not worry about that. It's going to go off spectacularly. Dublin is a fantastic host city. It's great for events. So yeah, no doubt they will be back. But let's get into talking about one of the teams that is going to be coming to Dublin. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going to get into some off-season headlines. And Jimmy, you're going to help us kind of break some of that stuff down. And we have to start, of course, we do, with the main man, the man who kind of hogs every headline, it feels, in the NFL space. There's a new quarterback in Pittsburgh, Roger that. Newlywed Aaron finally signs and states that this is his final year. Do we believe him? I don't know. Steelers are signing a Super Bowl winning veteran quarterback. What could possibly go wrong? It's the saga that felt like it drew on from February onwards, and it was finally done a few weeks ago. How are you feeling kind of Rodgers coming in? Russell Wilson, so they tried the veteran quarterback route last year with Russell Wilson, and then there was Justin Fields, and it just didn't quite work out. How are you feeling kind of it's going to go with Rodgers, and do you feel the fit's going to work?
I think it's a good fit in terms of he is, like you say, he's a Super Bowl winning veteran. He is proven he's one of the best to ever play the game. He's a future Hall of Famer. But having said that, he is well beyond his prime. And I saw him play twice last year, once in London against the Vikings, and then again in Pittsburgh against who do they play in Pittsburgh? Oh, they played the Jets in Pittsburgh. He was playing for the Jets. I forgot who they were playing. It seems like so long ago now. And actually, that's going to be their week 1 matchup, which is fascinating. Rodgers versus his old team, or one of his old team. They have the Packers as well, of course, which is going to be an even bigger game. But in terms, I mean, we all knew it was coming, right? It was inevitable that Rodgers was eventually going to sign for the Steelers after flirting with them for so long, and they really, really wanted him, and they went after him, and they got him. How it's going to pan out, again, I'm not sure. I think it's either going to be better than expected, or it's going to be absolutely awful. And he is a bridge quarterback. He's not the quarterback of the future. He's already come out and said that it's more than likely his last season. But what I do like about this is how he's taken to mentoring our younger quarterbacks. He's, Will Howard has come out and said that Rodgers has been working with him and mentoring him. So he does seem to be a kind of a I mean, I think the Steelers, they're still trying to find themselves, after Ben Roethlisberger to a certain extent, and I feel like Rodgers has come in and kind of steadied the ship a little bit, and I think especially after last year and Russell Wilson didn't work out, Justin Fields unfortunately didn't work out. I was a big Justin Fields fan. I think we should have kept him personally, but look, I'm not the general manager, so I think I think having the disappointment of Russell Wilson and whatever happened there, bringing in Rodgers was perhaps a less of a gamble, really, because we've already brought in one veteran quarterback and it didn't work out, and now we have an even better quarterback, future Hall of Famer. I mean, what can really go wrong, I suppose, but a lot can go wrong if the wheels do fall off and we have to put in Will Howard, God forbid, or our Mason Rudolph. That would be absolutely, that's worst case scenario, I think. So I suppose, Paul, to answer your question in a long-winded way, I'm on the fence about Rodgers. I really do not know how it's going to work out. I am excited to see him play here in Ireland. Obviously, got to see him play in London last year, which was really cool. But to get to see him play, hopefully in Croke Park in a few months' time, is just going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So, look, the Steelers organization know what they're doing. We have to have faith in Omar Khan and Tomlin and the ownership. But look, I am definitely very, very much on the fence about Rodgers right now, hoping for the best and expecting the worst, if that makes sense.
That's fair. I mean, you're right in terms of the faith in Tomlin and Omar Khan. Omar Khan's just been given a new 3-year deal.
Exactly,
that puts him in line with Tomlin, doesn't it? Who signed a new deal not too long before, so they're in lockstep. So you're right, and I say more often than not, they seem to have got decisions right as a whole. The Steelers, Byron, we know you're. For a second, have you got me back, guys?
I wasn't sure if that was me or you.
Back. That hasn't happened for ages. It's me, Jimmy. It hasn't happened for ages. But Byron, sorry, we know you're a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. How are you expecting it to go?
I don't know. I have very low confidence in my decision making on Rodgers or my guessing on how he'll be. My inkling is not good. I think he was really poor last year in New York. I don't think I think the biggest issue is, like, he can still throw the ball, but he's not able to create that yard for himself to plant and really get into his throws. When he gets a time, I think he's okay. But more and more we've seen last year, he was throwing the ball quick because he didn't want to get hit. And he knew that he didn't have he's never been the quickest, but he's always been able to scramble and, adjust in the pocket to create a yard. And I just don't think he's got that.
I mean, the man's 42. He's 42 years old. I mean, you can't really expect that much from him. But I absolutely agree. He does not. He's a shadow of his former self. I think.
What could be important though is he's a further year recovered from his Achilles injury, so he is older. But if he can get some of that mobility back by being fitter, by being a year recovered from that injury, I think there's a much higher floor than there could be. I think if he's the same quarterback he was for most of the season with the Jets last year, I think this could be a real rough go with it for that offense, especially with a lack of, high quality receivers. But if he is a year fitter and he is a year, more mobile, even though he is older, I think there's certainly a great flaw with Rodgers. It's just a case of, can he be fit enough to get there? And I do kind of worry about the Rodgers and the Arthur Smith of it all. I'm not sure how well that those two mesh with each other. Arthur Smith, I think, is very, he wants to line up behind the tight end and run and run and run. And Rodgers, we've seen it all the way through Green Bay. He wants to get to the line and call his own plays. So quite how they mesh together.
I think though that I think he'll be given a lot of freedom, given the fact that he has the pedigree. He's Aaron Rodgers, right? I think. Yeah. And I think Mike Tomlin himself, we all saw the knowing nod that he gave to Tomlin a couple of years ago when they squared off against each other. So I think he will be given a lot of free reign to improvise and call his own plays, much like Ben Roethlisberger did towards, well, not from the middle of his career on, and I know he clashed with Todd Haley on that, and that's why Todd Haley was given the boot in the end.
Yeah.
So look, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic person. I think it could be fantastic, but again, Byron, like you said, we have one good receiver, and then a load of average receivers, really. So we're going to need the entire offense and all our weapons to really step up and get on the same page as Rodgers and have that chemistry as quick as possible. And I think training camp is going to be essential for that, for Rodgers to get connected with his receivers and his weapons, and for this offense to find its identity. But look, time will tell. I guess it's going to be a very, very interesting season to be. I mean, look what happened last year where Russell Wilson got really hot and then suddenly dropped a 4-game losing skid going into the playoffs. So let's just hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I think we see maybe, like I said, that element of maybe a bit more consistency at the quarterback position that Rodgers can maybe offer. And look, this was still a Pittsburgh team that still won 10 games, had up until that kind of that very late run. Defense was real solid, and just that element of a little bit more consistency at the quarterback position to keep that offense moving might be the difference between winning some of those hard games on the stretch that can get you a home playoff game that can do that. And I think that might be where we're at with the Steelers. Enough about Aaron Rodgers. That's all we ever talk about. Let's move on to the next headline. Muscle meets metal. DK joins the Steelers. Steelers trade a second rounder for Metcalf, but trade Pickens to the Cowboys for a third and a fifth. Are there enough weapons in the wide receiver room? So we look like for a bit it might have been DK and Pickens, but Pickens went out. How are you feeling about kind of where the Steelers are now in terms of kind of that skilled position group, that pass catching? Those pass catching options that have since been slightly improved with the Jonnu Smith trade as well.
Yeah, I mean, slightly upgraded. I mean, I think swapping in, I think DK Metcalf is what Pickens could have been if Pickens was consistent. I mean, Pickens had some spectacular catches throughout his career, but he was never consistent. He was a drama queen. He was a diva. He was going down the path of Antonio Brown, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm glad to see the back of him personally. Disappointed, but I think it's better. Steelers are always going to be organization first and team first, right? That's the Steelers' ethos is, the many before the one, and that's why we love that organization. So I think he had to go, and then you saw a few weeks after he had committed to doing a kids football camp in Pittsburgh, and then didn't show up. So that really just shows his character, I think. And like DK Metcalf has come in now, he's an absolute specimen. I'd say he might have lost a little bit of speed, but I think he's still a big body receiving option that you can throw the ball up to. And we know Aaron Rodgers loves throwing those deep balls. So I think DK will be a good receiving threat for us. But apart from DK, there's not much else. I mean, Calvin Austin has flashed throughout his career. He's never really emerged look, I love Calvin Austin, but he doesn't have the size to be a true number one receiver. He's a fast man, but he's a very, very small man. And I'm 5'8". I stood beside Calvin Austin, and he's shorter than I am. So that's saying a lot for an NFL receiver. You have Scotty Miller, you have Ben Skoranek, who I actually played at Notre Dame for a season as a graduate transfer. He's primarily played on special teams, so he might get some more opportunities to see the field. But I think really we're going to have to rely on our tight ends this year. I mean, Pat Freiermuth had a bit of a down year last year in terms of receptions. As you say, we acquired Jonnu Smith. How much of an upgrade he's going to be, I don't really know. He's 29. He's coming towards the end of his career. I think he might have a couple of good more seasons left in him. I read an interesting article recently where Tyler Boyd said he'd be interested in joining the Steelers. But again, there's another aging wide receiver. We need to move away. From signing these aging receivers. And I was surprised that in the draft it was very, very defensively focused, which obviously, apart from Caleb Johnson in the second round, who's a good pickup on offense with the departure of Najee Harris. He's very similar to Najee and to Jalen Warren. So I think we could see Caleb Johnson emerging as the number one running back in the next couple of years. But I really don't. I don't think our offense has really improved much this offseason thus far. Our defense certainly has got an upgrade, but I think our offense, like I said earlier, it still hasn't found its identity since we lost Ben to retirement. And I don't think we're going to find that identity this season with Aaron Rodgers under center or with the pieces we have on offense, to be perfectly honest with you.
That's fair. Moving on then to our third headline, a fresh coat of black and gold. Pittsburgh going into the 2025 season with 9 new starters, with off-season moves, such as recent trades for Jalen Ramsey, and we just talked about Jonnu Smith. We saw how this broke, I suppose, last week. We saw
out of nowhere, just like completely out of nowhere.
Like we
Minding
knew
my own
Jalen...
business and work, and suddenly I get a tweet from Adam Schefter going, "The Steelers have traded for Jalen Jalen. What's his name? Jalen Ramsey."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What the hell is going on here?"
That was a weird thing. It seemed to break in 4 different parts as well.
Yeah.
Like, despite the fact it turned out it was one trade or one combined thing.
And then I saw we lost Minka. And I was like, what's going? We've lost Minka. No, I don't like this anymore. I was a fan until I saw the fact that we lost Minka.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a shame.
That's probably the question. Is it like, as it broke, it was like the Steelers traded for Ramsey. It makes perfect sense. Another veteran in the secondary. Ramsey was looking for a new play, new home. He'd made it clear he wanted to leave the Dolphins. Is that the Ramsey in and Minka Fitzpatrick out? Is that like net zero, or like do you feel you've lost a lot more in Minka given where he is in his career versus Ramsey's kind of on the other side now? Like how has it kind of left you feeling, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have lost out in this trade, and I know NFL.com, rated the Steelers as the winners of this trade. I'd see the exact opposite, because we lost a defensive leader in Minka Fitzpatrick. He was an integral part of that defense for so many years, since his kind of failed first stint with the Dolphins. And I know his production had kind of dropped in previous years in terms of defensive, or markers that you would have for a defensive back, interceptions, PBUs, etc. But you have to remember that he played as a run stopper more often than not, and he was very successful as a run stopper, as an additional man in the box. So there has to be more to this than meets the eye, because you don't just ship off a perfectly good safety who've been solid in the past couple of years for, again, another aging player who's probably past his prime. It doesn't make any sense to me. So definitely not a fan of this trade whatsoever. Even with the addition of the tight end and Jonnu Smith, I really don't know what sparked it, what the logic is here. But again, Omar Khan, like, he just signed a new 3-year deal, so he must know what's going on, or he must have some kind of plan in place. But I really, it boggled my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, that kind of secondary now does really have kind of that mix of youth and experience. Because obviously Slay came in the season, and then you've got Joey Porter Jr., who's had a solid start to his NFL career, and Beanie Bishop as well, who's been
Beanie Bishop with 2 interceptions or 3 interceptions against. I think he had 2 picks against Rodgers when the Jets play. He's been fantastic playing in that slot corner position, much like Mike Hilton did when we had him. So look, I mean, cornerbacks again. Cornerbacks is an interesting group, because I think we now have one of the oldest secondaries in the league with the addition of Ramsey and Darius Slay. They've both won Super Bowls. They've both been to they're both first team All Pro. So look, there definitely is experience there. My only concern is age, to be honest with you.
That's fair. It's hard in the NFL, especially when you are out on those islands. Sometimes if you don't have the speed, sometimes it gets exposed pretty quickly. So I'm interested to see how they go, but I'm sure obviously Tomlin and the Steelers will game plan that and about how to kind of get the experience out and ensure kind of they're not. And that's the supplementing then of Porter and how you use Joey Porter Jr. and how you use Beanie Bishop as well. So
it'll be interesting as well to see who steps into the safety spot that's being vacated by Minka Fitzpatrick, because aside from Deshaun Elliott, DeMonte Casey obviously is a good option. He was unfortunate a couple of seasons ago when he was suspended for the hit that wasn't helmet to helmet, as we all know. But again, that's just the league's no fun policy. As a former defensive player, I'm allowed to say that. As a former linebacker, I'm allowed to say that. So look, that's going to be very interesting. There's no other true starting safety on that roster as far as I can see right now, unless they're going to move Ramsey back to safety, which would be interesting. I know there is a pedigree or a precedent for cornerbacks moving to safety as they do get older, because there's less running involved to a certain extent and less specific coverage skills. So I think that's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on throughout training camp is how the Steelers fill the glaring gap in the secondary.
And I think principally there's a couple of veterans there on the free agency market, Justin Simmons and Julian Blackman, that could fill one of those spots potentially as kind of those veteran players that could kind of just come in and pick it up late in training camp and kind of fill that void if they don't find it in house, which could be interesting moves because those guys could be pretty effective, kind of coming in off the street. Last headline we've got. And this one might rumble on for a while until it gets resolved, really. What are they thinking? Newly extended Omar Khan and star edge TJ Watt reportedly apart on a few terms for a new contract. Will it be a record-breaking contract and a resetting of the market? One of the three that is going to potentially do it as an edge rusher? Or is it plausible that TJ Watt could leave the Steelers?
I think it's becoming more and more likely that he is going to leave. And when the Jalen Ramsey trade broke, a good friend of mine, also a diehard Steelers fan, we had this conversation and we are kind of saying if the Steelers are in rebuild mode now, which they clearly have kind of entered, with the goal being success in 26 or 27, then TJ is not going to win the Super Bowl with the Steelers and he needs to be traded. There's no point in paying him a record-setting contract if you're just going to have another 10-7 season and one and done in the playoffs, which apparently has become the new standard in Pittsburgh. The standard is one playoff appearance and out. So, look, I love TJ Watt. I watched him since the start of his career in Pittsburgh. He's the only active Steelers player whose jersey I have left. So if he leaves, I'm absolutely screwed because I bought a Najee Harris jersey in Pittsburgh last year, a stitched one, and then he left. He was traded in the offseason, so I can't wear that anymore. So for selfish reasons, I would love to see TJ stay, but I do think it is now becoming a possibility that he is traded, and you would want a king's ransom for him, given the production he has had, a future Hall of Famer, the best defensive player in the league. I don't care what people say about Myles Garrett. TJ Watt is the best defensive player in the league, has been for years, has been since his brother really, in JJ Watt. So look, as much as I would hate to see it, I think it is definitely a possibility.
It feels like it's starting to make more and more sense, doesn't it? I suppose just kind of with where the Steelers are, and that's tough, isn't it? Because yes, just for the player, you'd expect because of how good he is to get a haul for him. At the same time, it's going to be real hard for a team to give up that haul plus pay him the contract that he's going to want. It's hard to do both, and there certainly aren't many teams in a position to be able to do both.
16 days out for training camp now. I think if he sits out training camp, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the next kind of crunch point, isn't it? And we'll see. And this has got a risk of running into the season as well, so we'll see. I think it would feel weird seeing TJ Watt in another jersey.
It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right at all. I really hope that the Steelers see sense and do something and just pay the man and just include him in the plans for the future, because there's no one like him. There's no one like him in the league or even coming through college, I don't think, or has even come out in the past couple of seasons. Micah Parsons, but he's not really an edge rusher. He's more of a kind of an inside linebacker type. You have Kayvon Thibodeau there in New York again, possibly could be as good, but I just think TJ Watt is a generational player, defensive player, generational talent, and he's the face of the franchise right here. So I think if he is traded or let go, it would definitely signal a culture change with the Steelers at this stage.
Yeah, it would be. It'd certainly be a big reset. It'd be, interesting. It'd be certainly the biggest trade of the off season for sure.
I don't want to even think about it, to be honest with you.
Oh, we'll move on. Like, we'll stop putting the thought in your head.
Is the worst case scenario the Cincinnati Bengals? But you don't need to answer if we're going to move on.
Well, the worst case, I think the worst case scenario is the Ravens, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah.
Cincinnati.
I almost think Omar Khan might kidnap TJ Watt before he allows him to go to the Ravens. So I was kind of like thinking the Bengals. The Bengals are irrelevant to me at this stage.
They really are, given their defense couldn't catch it or couldn't stop anything last year, and you see what kind of a state their franchise is in at the minute, where they're having Trey Hendrickson sitting out.
Yeah, exactly.
They still haven't
and the
signed
first round pick.
Shamar Stewart hasn't signed, so they're in a bigger mess than we are right now. At least we're doing something proactive about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We're gonna clip that, Jimmy, and we'll share it with all our Bengals fans. The Bengals are irrelevant to me. We'll just clip that and put that.
Come at me. I'm ready.
Good, so that's the spirit. Good stuff. Let's take a quick look then. I suppose we've discussed about a lot of the ins and outs, but we'll just pop these up on screen. So Joe normally works the screen. Have I done a bad job? No, we've done a good job. Excellent. So we've got the ins and outs on screen. We've talked about a lot of them already. Rodgers in, Metcalf, Ramsey, Darius Slay. Anyone from the draft, Jimmy, that's kind of, we know Derek Harmon was the pick at 21. Again, typical Steelers pick, wasn't it? Like fortify the lines, get the big boys in on the D line or the O line. That's very Pittsburgh Steelers pick, which Derek Harmon's no doubt going to be a great play. But who do you think out of that draft class is going to make potentially the biggest impact that we haven't necessarily heard a lot about?
Well, Derek Harmon's already been anointed as a starting defensive tackle by Coach Carl Dunbar, the defensive line coach. So I think, the fact that he's wearing 99, Brett Kiesel's old number as well, that kind of says a lot about the Steelers' attitude towards him. And he has, when Brett Kiesel was here in Dublin for the draft, the Steelers draft party in Croke Park, he was hosting it. And when it kind of came out that he would be wearing 99, Kiesel gave him his blessing. So I think Derek Harmon's a lovely addition to that line. Cam Hayward, obviously, he's now kind of coming towards the end of his career. I think he might have 2 or 3 years left on his contract. He's unlikely to win in Super Bowl at this stage, unfortunately. And I love Cam to bits. I really would love to see him lift the Lombardi, but I think those two can work very, very well together on the defensive line. Caleb Johnson, obviously, who I mentioned earlier, could be a nice addition there in the backfield. Again, as much as I love our current running back situation with Jaylen Warren, we do need the kind of 1-2 punch that we did have previously with Najee Harris as well. Jack Sawyer, very interesting as a linebacker. Just won the national championship with Ohio State, so always like to see linebackers come in. He's also wearing 33, which is my number, so I'm going to be I might have to get myself a Sawyer jersey this year when I'm over. Will Howard, I think, was the steal of the draft, to be perfectly honest with you. I love this move. We all saw the video when the Steelers were in the 7th round, and he was like, "Come on, pick me." So you could see that he really wanted to be there. Again, he won the national championship with Ohio State, so there is, I believe there is potential franchise quarterback material in our quarterback room at the minute. It could be Will Howard could very well be the next franchise quarterback for the Steelers, and I think this is why the Steelers gave Omar Khan that 3-year extension, because he might have well pulled off the steal of the draft with this pick. And as well, the pick was announced by the Steelers International Fan of the Year, Tom McCormick. So shout out Tommy if you're listening. Well earned. It looks like he had a blast over there in Green Bay, and of course the draft is in Pittsburgh next year in 2026. So I'm definitely going to be heading over for that. But I think, look, it was a solid draft. It was an A- draft. I think NFL.com rated it. Look, very, very defense heavy. Would have liked to see a few more offensive skill position players in there. But look, I thought it was interesting how Sanders slid far. I mean, he emerged as a name for the Steelers early on in the kind of pre-draft process. But look, something obviously spooked NFL teams about him. So could have dodged a bullet there, and instead we got Aaron Rodgers. So look, not all bad at all, really.
Yeah, and we were sitting on draft night thinking 21 to the Steelers if Sanders fell, and then he fell another 100.
3 rounds.
God knows how many places.
And the Browns have a real quarterback conundrum on their hands now, because they drafted Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shadur Sanders, and now it's kind of emerged that Sanders is looking better than Dylan Gabriel, so they could have a real problem there. I had to laugh how Deontay Johnson came out and said Kenny Pickett should be the starting quarterback for the Browns, and I'm kind of like, well, there's a reason that we rejected that we got rid of him. There's a reason the Eagles didn't want to keep him on as a backup quarterback. So I wouldn't be giving much weight to what Deontay Johnson has to say about Kenny Pickett there, to be honest with you. So look, again, as far as I'm concerned, the Browns are irrelevant this season. More or less along with the Bengals. But look, I'm going to make so many friends on this podcast. Look, there's no Browns fans in Ireland as far as I'm aware. But yeah, look, it's going to come down to the Ravens and Steelers again this year. I think the Bengals might be a threat. They might get their business together before the season starts. But look, the AFC North is going to be a 2-horse race again this year.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into that then, because we're going to have a quick look at the Steelers. There we go. Win totals, and I will get the alignment back on screen properly. There we go. This is why Joe normally does it, not me. But the betting markets, and Vegas has got the Steelers at 8.5 wins, so it's got they're around 8 or 9 wins. Now we know for the last 17 years that the Steelers haven't had a year under 500 since they've been under the tutelage of Mike Tomlin. Where do you see their record being, Jimmy? Where do you think the Steelers are going to end up this year?
Well, last year we were 10-7, second in the AFC North behind the Ravens, who finished 12-5. We went out in the first round of the playoffs. The Ravens went out in the divisional round. I'm optimistic about this. I think as long as we can avoid that late season slide like we have with Russell Wilson, I do see us getting back to 10 wins, maybe even more. So look, if you like I said, I'm always an optimist, right? I love this team. I bleed black and gold. I really want to see them succeed. I'm going to go with 11 wins and 6 losses. I think there's a couple of tricky games in there. The AFC North is going to be particularly tricky. I think we're going to get the win in Dublin. But yeah, no, look, I think 8.5 is slightly on the conservative side, and obviously the addition of Rodgers and the uncertainty regarding the offense, I think, would have factored into that, and everything that's gone on in the offseason so far. But no, I think we're gonna have a good season. We're not gonna have a great season, and just as long as we can get past the wild card round, mother of God, we need to get that monkey off our backs and get to a divisional round for the first time. I don't know how long.
I think 6 in a row. Is it 6 in a row? 6 playoff appearances in a row
ridiculous.
where they're falling at the first hurdle. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I just can't see while Tomlin's there, and I think they'll get more consistent play out of Rodgers, quarterback. I think they'll finish with a winning record somewhere around 9, 10, 11. 9, 10, 11 wins. Division games are always tough. It's a drag out fight, isn't it? Those AFC North games are so tough always, no matter where the other teams are. So yeah, I'm on the over on that one. Byron, where are you? Where have you got the Steelers record?
Yeah, I'm under. Sorry.
Oh,
Jimmy.
no.
I mean, it doesn't mean I'm right. I think I had them under last year as well, and I was wrong then. So
there you go.
I really worry about the Rodgers of it all, truthfully. And then if it's not a success with Rodgers, I guess you want Will Howard to get as many minutes under his belt as you can. But I don't think that leads to winning football. I have them at 5-12, which feels wild.
What?
I remember getting.
Say it again.
You heard him right, didn't it?
Yeah, I have them 5-12. I remember getting heartache and earache a few years ago of having the Patriots going 4-13 and Bill Belichick.
Yeah, that's true. And and
that's exactly what they had, and he got fired. So I don't mind putting my neck on the line with these.
That's fair enough. That's brave.
That's
brave. I'll give it. That's a bold call. But like, you mean, the wheels could absolutely fall off the wagon. It's definitely a possibility.
And I think it's kind of something you alluded to as well. Of like, they're in rebuild with a load of old players. And
but they're not gonna tank though. The Steelers would never tank.
Well, that's it's just, I think there's just a lot of pressure on those older players who are new to the franchise. And like I say, I just worry. The main thing I worry is the Aaron Rodgers of it all. If it goes
I love
south,
that, the Aaron Rodgers of it all. That's great.
That's a good.
If it goes south and he can't pick it back up, that running back room and that O-line better play. And I do like the O-line room, to be fair. I think they've got a real strength there, especially if they can keep everyone fit, which was a bit of an issue last year. But I like Caleb Johnson, and I think if Arthur Smith can implement his style, I think they might be more successful than going with Rodgers calling the shots. But I think it's more likely it ends up with Rodgers calling the shots, and I'm not sure. Well, clearly, I don't think it's going to work because I have him at 5 wins. So, that's the ultimate, end line of it for me.
Fair.
And I've been wrong more than I've been right on the Steelers over the years. So you can probably take that with confidence, Jimmy.
Very true.
Five wins would be a disaster. Five would be
it would be
nightmare.
It would be. It just feels like there is a little bit. It just feels like something does need to change, doesn't it? Because they're just in this rut, as you mentioned, around 9, 10, 11 wins, first round exit, and put it on repeat, and can't change anything because they're in that or late teens to early 20s draft pick. Can't really do anything there. And so something does have to change either way. So it'll be interesting if 2025 is the year that does happen. To make the playoffs, so they're odds on to not make the playoffs, which ties into that 8 or 9 wins that the Vegas thinks they're at. 27-22 make the playoffs, so only just over even money to make the playoffs. Jimmy, as you're expecting, kind of 11 wins. 11 wins, it'd be crazy for 11 wins. Misses you out. Nobody's missed out with 11 wins in the AFC for years, have they? Patriots.
No, I look again. I think we'll be relatively safe getting back to the playoffs this year. If we can do it with Russell Wilson, who again, and I keep talking about it, but it was just so painful to watch us throw away games late in the season and have to go through the wild card. So I think as long as we can avoid that, we should be into the playoffs. But it just depends on who we get into the playoffs and what transpires there. But look, I would be. Based on previous seasons, I would be relatively confident in a playoff appearance. It's beyond that. I don't know what's going to happen, really.
Yeah, so I've got 9 or 10 wins. That it's going to be right on the edge of potentially that 7th seed. So I guess it just depends how.
But again, I mean, you look at where the Browns and Bengals finished last year, and we got the better of them with those records, and that got us into the playoffs there. So I would be relatively confident that we would make the playoffs this year.
Excellent. 11-2 to win the division. So behind the Ravens, who of course fancied again to win the AFC North. 18-1 to win the AFC and get to the Super Bowl, and 40-1. Can't be many seasons where the Pittsburgh Steelers have been 40-1.
They're 35-1 on Paddy Power. I checked before I came on, so slightly shorter odds than Vegas is giving.
Yeah, slightly more weird, but yeah, I don't remember the Steelers being that long, so it's interesting. Last thing before you go, Jimmy, because we know you are on a time crunch. But what would you think would be a good season for the Steelers, all things considering?
Honestly, and this just kind of shows how mediocre the bar has become in recent seasons with the Steelers. I think a playoff appearance and a first round win would be a massive improvement on previous years, considering we've been dumped out for, again, Paul, I think you said the past 6 seasons we've been dumped out in the first round. The most heartbreaking of which was against the Broncos when Demaryius Thomas caught that touchdown pass from Tim Tebow. I still have nightmares about that game.
Yeah.
I still have nightmares about that play, to be honest with you. I just see it behind my eyes over and over again as I go to sleep.
Tim Tebow's one good passing is in NFL.
Oh, one, like,
what
happen to be against us in the playoffs. Just unbelievable. I'll never forgive Tim Tebow for that. But no, I think, I know every team starts the season and says Super Bowl or bust, but I think that's just beyond the realm of possibility at the minute, considering the pieces we have in position. I think that we are rebuilding, we are working for the future, but I think a divisional round appearance would be progress, and I think it has to be like that. It has to be like that every year, where every year we get better and better until we get back to an AFC Championship, and then eventually we get to a Super Bowl in a few seasons' time. But yeah, that's unfortunately the sad state of affairs for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the minute, where you're hoping for a divisional round appearance.
Yeah, it's something like I say that cycle stuff, but also playing it up. There's only one team that can win it all at the end of the year, of course, and a lot of teams would kill to have the kind of consistency of being in the playoffs that the Steelers do. So yeah, it's tough when the standard is the standard.
The standard is the standard.
Yeah, when the standard is standard, it's tough. Jimmy, thanks ever so much for joining us. You've been a great guest as always. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Make sure you go follow Jimmy, Gaelic Gridiron. He's going to be covering the rest of the domestic season. He'll be covering the college game. He'll be no doubt covering the Steelers game.
No rest for the wicked. Straight from the domestic season to college to NFL. I get a week off in August. I'm going to Italy and I'm turning my phone off for a week. Then as soon as we get back, it's straight into the college stuff. Otherwise, my missus will she'll actually kill me because she's not gonna see me for three or 4 months. August and January, she's not going to see me pretty much.
That's it. Well, Jimmy, we're going to be in Dublin for the college football game, so we're coming to see you.
We're definitely for having pints.
Excellent, good stuff. Can't wait. Thanks again, Jimmy, and we'll see you soon, mate.
Thank you very much, lads. Always.
Thanks to Jimmy English there for helping us preview the Pittsburgh Steelers. Make sure you go follow Gaelic Gridiron to keep across everything that's going on the island of Ireland in terms of the NFL and the domestic game as well. Jimmy's doing a great job covering the AFI season as well, as their kind of grand finals and Shamrock Bowls and Heart Bowls are next week, leading into the college football game, and then the main event, the Steelers Vikings in September. We're going to jump in and start looking at the rest of the teams. We've got the Bengals, we've got the Browns, and then we'll finish off with the Ravens before having a look at our best bets for the division. Shall we just get straight into it?
Let's go.
Excellent. So the Cincinnati Bengals, top headline for the Bengals, wide receiver duo turn orange to green. Chase and Higgins get huge contracts. Jamar is now the highest paid non-quarterback, and T is the highest paid wide receiver too. Is it too big a bite out of the Bengals cap? What do we make then? This was done quite early in the off-season. Is it 40%? It's over 40% of the cap, isn't it? That's dedicated to. Is that Burrow, Higgins, and Chase?
I think that is Burrow.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it feels like it must be because that would be a tough fit to also get Burrow in there because they paid Mike Gesicki a healthy amount as well. Nothing crazy, but like a healthy amount for Mike Gesicki. It's hard to tell. Is it too much? I think the bigger issue is they haven't drafted well around these players. Like you can afford to pay your top players a lot of money. You know, we see it with Philadelphia. We see it with San Francisco. Like, these teams are able to pay and push along with that. If you draft well, Cincinnati have not been doing so recently for the large part, especially on defense. I think they're going to be... I think it might lead to more games like last season, more of a season like last season, where Chase and Higgins better be out of their mind, and so must Joe Burrow, because it's very top heavy.
I mean, look, at least the more Bengals shootout games, like, I'm all for it because those were some great games last season.
I think, I was just going to say, and it feels like Joe Burrow's pushed this, so I think that's like a big thing as well. So, you know, you got to keep him happy. There's rumors, there's feelings out there, like, is Joe Burrow, is he going to be a Bengals for life just because of what the organization is? So why not make him happy with his top two wide receivers? And I think, Chase deserves it. You know, T. Higgins is probably the best wide receiver too in the league. So when you look at contract by contract, you're like, they deserve them contracts. It's just, Bengals being Bengals, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in the next headline, where they're happy to pay some people but not the others, just to put the organization back.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty for us to talk about Bengals being the Bengals, I'm sure, in these. But is it going to be enough then? Do you think? Is this approach of going this way and top loading it, are they going to be able to overcome it? Because we've seen teams do this with, I don't know, a few number of players, and you know, it's hard when teams just have that, sometimes just have the big quarterback contract to work around it. Do you have belief that the Bengals are savvy enough and from a front office perspective to work around this and be able to get enough out of 50 other players to be able to accommodate the money being spent in those three?
I think it's what Byron said. They just need to draft better. When you think about the whole squad, some of the star players, especially on defense, they didn't draft them. So teams are able to pay their big players. We've seen plenty of teams paying their quarterback, their weapons, big money, if you're able to draft well and also bring in veterans on, savvy deals. And again, are the Bengals able to do that? It feels like they just bring their old players back after a couple of years out, and they're bringing some fringe players in. because when I was looking at the players who they brought in when I was doing the slides, it's nothing to shout about, and I think that's just the worry, is that these teams who, like for example the Eagles, who draft well, they also bring in veterans on cheap contracts just to help out that depth, and they just never feel that way. I think the offense is going to be fine. It's just basically on the defense, can they get them pieces in play to make these contract work?
Excellent. Let's move on to headline number 2. Trey Day gets the sacks, but not the stacks. Hendrickson out in the cold, despite splashing the cash on the wide receivers. NFL's 2024 sack leader in contract stalemate. Will he leave the jungle? This is one of the points, I suppose, about the Bengals just not really managing things correctly and going, the way they go about their business. Yeah, how do we kind of see this one playing out? Because it does feel like a bit of a Cold War sort of situation at the minute with Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals.
Yeah, I don't see a quick resolution. It's probably the easiest way of putting it. I don't know if they're going to be happy paying him, but I'm pretty sure all the talk was last year was play this next year and we'll sort you next season. And now we're at next season. And we've seen the wide receivers, we've seen Gesicki get paid. And Trey Hendrickson is just kind of... I think he feels really disrespected by the lack of communication from the team. I'm not going to say as much as a lack of pay, but alongside the lack of pay, it just feels like just nothing is being handled correctly. And, to Joe's point of they don't get these short-term free agents, people don't want to go and play in Cincinnati because they are cheap. They don't treat their stars well. They don't treat anybody well. They are not a well-run organization. And when players have the option, then they will go and play somewhere else because the money's as good in New York or Las Vegas or California as it is in Ohio. There's no draw to Cincinnati other than going to play with Joe Burrow. And how many of their great players are there by choice? I mean, I know Chase has re-upped, Higgins has re-upped, Burrow has re-upped. Those are drafted players, so they don't bring in star players. They don't treat their star players well. I know we've touched on it with Jimmy about TJ Watt potentially being on the move. I think Trey Hendrickson is probably more likely than Watt to be on the move because I just don't think they're going to get it done. I think they've burned so much of a bridge there that, very obvious. People don't like being disrespected. And he has outperformed his contract for 2 years in a row. He's been the heartbeat of that defense, which has been absolute putrid. And it just feels like I'm not going to say he gets nothing for it. He's very well compensated, but he's not treated like a top-of-the-market player. And again, you see T. Higgins is a really good wide receiver too. But there was no real hesitation in getting him paid. I mean, he got the franchise tag last year, but the deal was done quickly this offseason. And Trey Hendrickson is, again, from his accounts, no communication, feels disrespected. It just doesn't feel like it's heading to a happy ending for Cincinnati, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the problem was not doing it last year. Yeah. It's like if they'd done it last year, because it was not. I don't think he's probably not going to get them what Myles Garrett gets, TJ Watt, all them kind of players, and that makes sense. But the problem is you've left it so long that them players have gotten bigger. I think TJ Watt is going to stay in Pittsburgh, and I think it's going to be a contract around Myles Garrett. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like $500,000 more or like $1 more, something like that. So he's looking at that saying, I got the most sacks, I've had 2 productive years. I want something similar to that. But if a year ago, if they just paid him probably a lot less what the market was, then they'd just be sorted right now. It's just a team that just thinks, oh, we'll wait for next year. We'll see what happens. But I'm sure they must learn now in the NFL that players get more and more and more. So you're eventually going to have to pay the piper when he is your leading edge rusher. Because the alternative is you just want him to have a bad year, so you don't pay him. So he has a bad year. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. Let's move on to headline number 3. Oh, no. Headline number 3. Bengals bungling rookie deal. So this kind of, plays into, I suppose, I think, an extension of what we were just talking about with Trey Hendrickson. Setting off on the wrong paw. Bengals trying to add contract clause to upset rookie first rounder. Will it be a lost season for raw talents? This is Shamar Stewart. And so my understanding of this is that other teams have got rookies to sign this or have this clause in their contract recently. The Bengals haven't done it before, and they are trying to do it for the first time with Shamar Stewart. And it's in summary, like for some reason, he is, cut or gets suspended for some off the field stuff. The Bengals are off the hook for guaranteed money. Is the crux of it, and that's what teams are doing to try and protect themselves. And Shamar Stewart and his agent just aren't having it, and they are not being the first people in Cincinnati to have this clause in their contract. That agent isn't wanting to be the first person that gets done over in Cincinnati by the Bengals for that clause. And again, this one, he's not signed. He's not signed. He's left one of the voluntary camps, the mini camps, and Shamar Stewart had quite the quotes to say to the media about it. I suppose why would you stay in this position again where they just constantly can't get out their own way?
I mean, I don't want to say Bengals going to Bengal again, but it kind of feels like it. They drafted Amarius Mims 18 last year, and he didn't have to have this word in his contract. So if you're Shamar Stewart and his representatives, you were drafted 17. Why would you take a worse deal than the guy drafted 18 last year? Just pay the man. Like, the rookie wage scale is so easily laid out nowadays. Like, you don't need to tie yourself in knots about this. Just eat the very small percentage that something bad off the field happens. And if you have real off the field concerns, you shouldn't be drafting him in the first round. Like, that's not difficult. It's not a difficult thing. Shamar Stewart, I think, more than any first round pick, needs playing time. Like, he is a raw prospect. He didn't have production in college. He has traits coming out of his ears, but he doesn't have the production. He needs to be on the field learning, ideally from Trey Hendrickson. This is beyond Bengaling. Like, it's almost like, Ted Lasso, where the owner's trying to destroy the club, so he hires Ted Lasso. It's like they're trying to do that. Like, just what can we do to this defense to make it worse than last year? Let's make Joe Burrow earn his money. I do not understand it. Pay Shamar Stewart. Have a real word with yourself for what you're actually doing with these rookies. So you've got a plan for next year when they come in the building and they get signed day one. It just, because again, the rookie wage scale isn't complicated. It's really mapped out for you what you do. Just guarantee the money and just get it done. Again, especially when you've got such a raw prospect who needs time on the training field. And then, if he holds out into the season or to the start of the season, I really can't. I can't explain it. Can't justify it. It's just pig-headedness.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing is like it's a position of need. It's a position like we're all going to go into this. The defense was terrible last year. Can they change around? Blah blah blah. If it was like a wide receiver holding out, for example, you'd be like, okay, they've got cover.
Yep.
We need that. But like you said, he's a raw talent. You need him to hit the ground straight away. There's a couple of players who they've drafted who are probably going to be starting this year. So just get them in. It's not all these NFL owners have got no money. It's not the NFL's not making tons and tons of money. It's just, I know other teams do it, but just, get them in the building. If it's like on this long, just, swallow your pride and just get on with it. Because again, like you said, it's reflecting on them. Players are going to say, oh, he, what happened to him might happen to me, so I'm not going to sign. So, and it'll be funny if he does hold out for the year and he enters the draft again next year. That'd be hilarious.
And the thing is, it can only be drafted by 31 teams. Then the Bengals wouldn't be allowed to retake him. What are the chances that he just signs and gets traded? Is it really low? It's not happening, is it?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, you sign.
Can you imagine the Eagles have given the second round pick though?
Would you even get that for him?
I really don't know, because I know like Shamar Stewart's right in principle, but I don't think you look at the way he's acted and be like, oh yeah, this is the guy I want in my locker room necessarily. Like the stuff about his quotes is like, it's good, it's great content, but as much as he's in the right, I think you'd rather he just kept quiet and let his agent do the talking for him, maybe.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's going to rumble on through training camp and things like that, because the longer he goes unsigned, the more time he has away. And he's already started behind a lot of the first round players anyway, just from where it's come from a lack of production in college, and I thought it was a baffling pick anyway. But anyway, that's we could talk for ages about that. But headline number 4, let's move on. Golden touch for the defense after 2024's disastrous defensive performance. Bengals fire Lou Anarumo and hire Al Golden. Can the defense help the offense this year? So that's the question, can it?
Well, I mean, to go to our last 2 headlines, it would help if you got your 2 best pass rushers available. I struggle to see it doing so. Al Golden better have as you say there, Joe, the golden touch, because the talent hasn't greatly improved. I don't know what you'd have to be excited about on this defense, especially if Hendrickson and Stewart continue holdouts through training camp. And training camp's coming up soon, within 2 weeks. So, yeah, I have very low optimism for this defense bouncing back in any meaningful way. I just don't think they've done enough, and their premium player is peeved off. Their rookie that they want to hit the ground running with, who's the prototype of what a pass rusher should look like, isn't turning up and is peeved off. I think Al's got his hands full.
Yeah, I can't look at the depth chart and looking at where they are defensively. I'm like, and it's gonna probably be a car crash again. I think defensively, and
it'd be great to watch.
I'm curious. Just sometimes just a new defensive voice in there, because I don't think the Lou Anarumo scheme just did not help them whatsoever. I don't think it was fitting the players they had. So I think it was the right time. And again, it's one of these defensive coordinators who, a few years ago was like, oh, could it be a head coach, candidate, all that kind of stuff. Out the door. So, Notre Dame's deep defense was good in college. So we'll see if Golden can bring it along.
I mean, I was just looking at how many games did they lose when they scored more than 30 points. It's a record, wasn't it? I think they lost 4. Did they lose 4 points? Yeah, 4 games where they scored more than 30 points. Lost with 33. Lost the game with 38. Lost with 34. Lost with 38 twice. So yeah.
I mean, they scored 25 or more points the first 5 weeks of the season. Started 1-4.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah, very fun. It's going to be great.
Imagine being a Bengals fan. Yeah. You have a franchise Hall of Fame level quarterback. You've got one of the best wide receivers in the league. I'm a little slow to chase the best wide receiver in the league just based on last year. I think him, Jefferson, and Lamar are kind of in their own tier. And they just can't get anything else right. How... Yeah, I don't want to say Bengals going to Bengal again, but... I've stopped saying it. That's me for the show. I'm not doing it again.
Excellent. Right, let's have a look at the key transactions for the Bengals. Anything we haven't, in terms of players in, players out through free agency in the draft? I suppose, is there anyone that we've, not touched upon that we think could have a really big impact for the Bengals in 2025?
I don't think of the incomings, I'll be blunt. I don't think there is. I think, again, it's pretty... And he said upsetting list, kind of a demoralizing, nondescript list. So I don't think there's anybody who's getting you, out of your seat and going, oh yeah, this is going to be a game changer for the Bengals. I think there's a couple of players. Well, again, looking at it from a fantasy lens, I'm really interested in Chase Brown, what he does as a full-time running back one. He was electric second half of the season. He far outshot my expectations for him. And I think, to use a bit of a football cliche, Amarius Mims might be like a new sign-in, and I think he might be like the kind of unwritten Jenga piece of this team, because that offensive line has been horrible as well for, pick a number of years, a lot of them, since Burrow got there, and Burrow's had to deal with injuries because of it. I think if Amarius Mims can start fulfilling that potential, because he's a bit like Shamar Stewart, he looks the perfect part, but he needs to develop, and, getting an ACL year one doesn't help with that. But if he can come back, hit the ground running, he should be fit for the start of the season. And that be a shining light for them.
Yeah, and I think from the draft, Demetrius Knight is going to go straight in with Jermaine Pratt leaving, and Carter as well at linebacker, because he was just so just got overrun in that position. Obviously bringing Oren Burks as well, who was the 49ers and Eagles last year, so he's got the experience to help that team along. They just need that. I think that was a huge issue for them. So yeah, it's we'll be talking about another team who's done similar, who's drafted a linebacker in the second round, and you expect them to play straight away. And I think it's a position where it's not the easiest to get thrown straight into the starting lineup. So that'll be curious how that fits for the Bengals.
Excellent. Well, let's have a look then at the win total line and the odds for the Bengals. After we've had some, I thought that was a pretty negative conversation, wasn't it, for all things Cincinnati Bengals? The line's 9.5, so over under 9.5 wins. Favourites go over 5 to 7, suggest over for based on the odds. Under even money or plus 100. Where have you got them, guys?
I'll go first. I've actually got them at 10 wins, so I've got them at the over, and that includes a week 1 loss to the Browns, just because they always lose in week one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got them at 10, and sneaking into the playoffs. So yeah, I've got them over at 5 to 7.
Byron? Sorry, Joe.
Despite how horrible I think, sorry, Joe, you go ahead. Finish.
I was gonna say just because of Burrows. That's what my reasoning was then.
Well, mine's exactly the same. Not the number. I have them at 9 and 8. And it's because Joe Burrow was a miracle worker. The rest of the roster, I mean, maybe, again, Chase is a bit of a unicorn himself, but take Joe Burrow out of this team and they are a 4-win team. Like, I don't see what there is there other than Joe Burrow. But yeah, I think he can carry them to 9 wins because he is, we all know it, but he's such a special player. I just wanted to quote some quick stats here. Warren Sharp had this in his Bengals preview. In the last 4 years, Joe Burrow has been blitzed at the number 1 lowest rate of any quarterback. He has been hit within 2.5 seconds at the number 1 highest rate in the league, just to re-emphasize that offensive line issues. It's such a shame because Joe Burrow could easily be in the Patrick Mahomes conversation of, an instant Hall of Famer. And I don't think the Bengals' inability to win scuppers his career that sense. I think he's still on the Hall of Fame trajectory because he's such a special player. But I still think it's right that, in 4 years' time, we're just going to be sitting going, Burrow's re-up with the Bengals again. He's getting paid like the number 1 quarterback in the league because he's that good. And they've won 2 playoff games, or they've won 1 playoff game, like since the Super Bowl run. It seems incredibly likely because it's just who they are. So yeah, I do have them going under 9 wins. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded. But yeah, just like Joe, it is solely basically on the arm and the brain of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, when I sort of last ran through the season, I had them at 12 wins. That I don't feel great with that. Now I think 9 or 10. I don't think I'll be taking either side on the Bengals. But yeah, 9 or 10 might have a chance of sneaking in the playoffs. But yeah,
I should have really dropped them to 8 and 9 because I haven't beaten the Browns in week 1, and Joe's absolutely right. They won't.
They won't. I'll be taking the Browns plus whatever in week 1.
Yeah,
for sure. I'll just go a quick look at the schedule. Maybe the run where they got Baltimore, Baltimore 3 weeks, week 13 to 15. That seems fun. But yeah, they've got another one. I don't think they can get to 10, but yeah, I think 9 or 10 and might sneak a wild card spot is probably as good as it's going to get for the Bengals until they really, really do address the defense. Let's have a look at the odds to make the playoffs. You've flipped them already. So 5 to 8. So yeah, seemingly 9.5. 9.5 or 10 wins is where the odds are saying. The bookies think 10's enough to get in. No, 13 to 10, and then 23 to 10 to win the division. 10 to 1 to win the AFC, and 20 to 1 to win Super Bowl 60. Anything? Are those odds too short for you to be interested?
Certainly too short for me.
Yeah. The second favourite to win the division, which I also wouldn't be surprised because the AFC North can throw a few things up, and yeah, they're also a team where I feel like if they get on a heater, they could get to the Super Bowl. But 20 to 1, I think there's teams who have got similar odds who would lean more to the Bengals.
I think obviously when they got to the Super Bowl, I also got to the AFC Championship game. That defense did turn up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I just have no hope that would be the case with this defense. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And the line was terrible. The offensive line was terrible then as well. Remember the Titans game?
Yeah.
I can't remember how many sacks it was, but it was like, how is Joe Burrow?
Was it 8
like,
or 9?
I think so. Yeah, 9 was the number in my head. Like, how is Joe Burrow getting through this game? Never mind winning it. Yeah.
Excellent. Let's move on. Let's stay in Ohio, though, so we're not moving too far. Up to Cleveland. So, yeah, let's start with the first headline for the Cleveland Browns. Too many quarterbacks, too few answers. The Browns' Achilles heel, the quarterback room gets messier, with gaining 1 by trade, 1 by free agency, and 2 in the draft. Who's going to start week 1?
Great question.
I'm going to go Flacco. I'll be shocked if it's not Flacco. I think that's where I'll put my money on. I don't think Pickett's going to beat them. I think if he's fit, obviously. I don't think any of the rookies will. I think they might. Yeah, I think it was Byron who mentioned that someone might just fake an injury and somehow one of them will go on the IR to keep a hold of them. But I think Flacco will be. Yeah, I'll be very surprised if it's not him.
It should be Flacco.
Well,
I have a weird feeling with Kenny Pickett, and I can't put into words why. It should be Joe Flacco, though. I'm going to say that. I don't have a confident take on who it will be.
Well, Myles Garrett came out with his support saying it should be Joe
Beautiful.
Flacco, didn't it? And Deontay Johnson said it should be Kenny Pickett, but I don't think Deontay Johnson's probably not going to be around to see who's quarterback week 1 based on what we know with Deontay Johnson.
Bit too cold in Cleveland.
It's fine in the summer. He might make it to September and then. Yeah.
Oh, somewhere on Lake Erie. Is that the right lake? Yeah, it is, yeah.
Not
but how do you not know, Byron?
Never been to Cleveland, and this is an NFL podcast, not a Great Lakes podcast.
That's the new spin-off as part of the Good Teams and Great Teams Cover Network. Joe. Yeah, well, back to our business. Joe Flacco even money to be Cleveland Browns starter at the minute in week 1. Kenny Pickett 2-1 or plus 200. Dylan Gabriel 5-1 plus 500. Shadir Sanders 17-2 or plus 850. Yeah, plus 850.
It's going to be so hard for those rookies because who's going to get the snaps in the training camp?
I have no idea. I would what was Shadir was like 4 or 5-1 earlier on, and I was like not too long after the draft, and I was like maybe, and then yeah.
It sounds like he's getting the 4th. Amount of snaps. Like the order you just put it in is who's getting the snaps. I just think it's just an awkward. Like they obviously picked him. We haven't chatted about it. Like it would have been crazy before the draft doing off-season headlines. That Shadir Sanders going to the Browns is not one of the big ones, but obviously the slide the Browns taking. But yeah, we talked about it after the draft. Just the way they took Gabriel in the 3rd and then Sanders in the 5th, bit of a flyer. And yeah, I'm curious. I wonder if someone will just trade for him, just chuck them a random 7th or just.
So we've got Shadir Sanders on the move.
Yeah.
Shamaster on the move.
Yeah.
All the rookies are just going to leave their teams in the AFC North immediately.
Yeah, a lot of movement. Excellent. Let's move on to headline number 2. Big Dog got the big bag. Myles Garrett chooses to stay put after signing a huge extension worth $40 million per year. Was it ever really about winning at all? I think we had this probably discussion at the time. He wrote that open letter saying it wasn't about Canton, it was about championships. They don't know.
Yeah, and then he had an interview with Andrew Siciliano where he declared he knew what the Browns' plan was at quarterback and he was happy with it. This was way before the draft, before free agency. And then, we just went through what the quarterback room is.
The Browns don't know what the plan is, yeah.
Yeah. Myles Garrett just wanted a big bag. Fair enough, but it's funny to try and pretend it was ever anything otherwise.
Excellent, yeah. Garrett staying put. And no doubt continue to be a menace. Looking to add Aaron Rodgers to his Halloween graveyard, of course, which is always a great quote. Headline number 3 for the Browns. Chose to trade down and pick Graham Crackers. Is that supposed to be Graham? Is that
Graham
what that
Crackers.
was?
Yeah, it's a real good. That's the one I love, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
that was me. Graham Crackers. Oh, you could have put that in there. Anyway, Browns take now a chance to pick Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at 2. Trading with the Jags to number 5, where they chose defensive tackle at Michigan, Mason Graham, and received picks including the 1st next year. Again, we touched on this already afterwards. They had themselves in quite a little haul. I think they had 5. Was it 5 picks in the top 100? Was it? And the general consensus between us was we feel like they might have wasted them.
Yeah, the vast majority was at non-premium positions: DT, linebacker, running back, tight end, Dylan Gabriel. I mean, quarterback is the premium position, but not usually in the third round. So, yeah, I think it's kind of like, to use a baseballism, like it's a lot of like maybe hitting doubles, but not really taking big swings. So, yeah, solid, very unspectacular, I would dare say, which taking Travis Hunter at 2 would be the complete opposite of it. So, it'd be...
I would say as well, we've got to wait till obviously next year, see where the Jags finish. Because if the Jags are picking top 5 again, top 10, then the Browns could have top 2, top 10, 2 top 10 picks. If I can spit that out. And we don't know what the other players are because there's been plenty of times as well. This guy's a lock on to be a Canton player like Carter and Hunter, and then a few years down the line doing it on a different team, but. Yeah, it was a strange one. Just I think it was the excitement. I think the issue was how excited the Browns fans were. We had one during the live draft pod. And I think it just deflated the fan base who had excitement brewing about what possibilities could be. Especially if they had Carter with getting Myles Garrett, for example. Graham could be a great player and help Myles Garrett out, but it was just that having both of them, having Carter and Garrett, was the excitement then. It was just, it gets a bit deflating from the Browns, and the rest of the draft wasn't spectacular.
Excellent. Right. Let's move on for the Cleveland Browns. Chubb to Chubb. End of an era for beloved running back as Nick Chubb leaves in free agency. We'll revamp backfield to see a return of a strong rushing attack. Nick Chubb obviously landed with the Houston Texans.
He did.
Excellent. Yes. Well remembered. Lots gone on. Obviously out. Obviously had that horrific injury. Just didn't come back the same. But hopefully he does return to somewhat his best in Houston. But yes, revamped running back room, I suppose, with the picks. Judkins out of Ohio State. Sampson, the other one?
Dylan Sampson, out of Tennessee.
Yeah, out of Tennessee as well. Do we think that we are going to see kind of return to this dominant rushing game that the Browns did have for a period of time when Chubb was at his best?
Again, to be kind of blunt, no. Putting a lot of pressure on Judkins to hit the ground running with a worse offensive line than Nick Chubb had for the majority of his career in Cleveland. You look at that whole line, it's aging out. Players who pass the best or never really were very good in the first place. And I don't think there's much of a passing attack to scare defenses from loading the box up. I think Quinton Judkins is probably going to have a lot of touches. I think it's going to be a first, second down hammer, and I dare say he's probably going to be in a lot of third downs as well. Jerome Ford will get some work in there, but I think it is going to be Judkins as the hammer, as that Chubb role, but I think it's going to be nowhere near the success Nick Chubb had. This is, to me, a much worse offensive setup than Chubb had for the majority of his career in Cleveland.
Yeah, I wonder I think it's all about the Flacco effect because, when Flacco had the Browns last time, he was going off. I know it was with Cooper, and now you've got Jerry Jeudy, who had a strong second half to the season. So if they can get that going and Flacco's bombs away, then I think that's where, Judkins and, there's Jerome Ford there and Strong Jr. I think they've got like an interesting backfield where, it could go off because as soon, when you have Flacco playing like how he was, I don't think it's the same team, but, you've got Kevin Stefanski, who, how many head, coach of the years has he won? Can he do it again with a less team? So, yeah, you'll see from one of my bets later on. I've got a bit of confidence in Judkins. He could have a decent first rookie year.
Oh, Joe throwing out teasers for the last segment. Excellent. Let's have a look at the ins and outs then and the draft picks. We've kind of touched on this already from the Browns. We saw Flacco in, Deontay Johnson we talked about a little bit. Malik Collins could have a positive impact on that defensive line. Chubb gone, Elijah Moore gone, Jedrick Wills, Dalvin Tomlinson. Who are we expecting them to kind of make a sort of big impacts for the Browns in 2025 who we haven't kind of already touched on?
Joe, I'll let you take this one.
Oh, I used to pronounce his name. Schwessinger. So that was the second linebacker I mentioned who got drafted in the second round. Who's going to, is going to get thrown straight into the deep end. Again, another team who didn't have the greatest year at linebacker. So, yeah, I'm curious how it's going to work. And I think, that Millie Collins is a fun one, just with pairing him and Mason Graham up there. You've got now a decent defensive tackle with Myles Garrett. And, they've still, on the back end, they've still got them players who, just 2 years ago, is one of the best backfields and what Jim Schwartz did for that defense. So I think they're going to be in a lot of close, low-scoring games again. I think that's what the Browns are going to play this year. And I think that defense could be one of them surprising teams who has a bounce back with, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and all of them. And I think it's how, some of the new pieces fit in. What about you, Byron? Any youngsters who, on fantasy-wise, I know we mentioned the running backs, but any of us?
Yeah, I don't think maybe this year fantasy-wise will get much work, but Harold Fanning was super productive in college. He could certainly get targeted and come down with catches, come down with touchdowns. If they can run him and Njoku as two tight end sets, and Njoku's, he's a fantasy player who I think outperforms his ADP every single year. And it's the same again this year. He finished as tight end 6, I think, in points per game last year, and he's been drafted at tight end 11 this year. People just never seem to want to take him because he plays for the Browns, which I kind of get, but, point to point. It'll be interesting to see how they incorporate Fanning into that offense, because I know Judy had a hot spell with Flacco last year, but I think Judy's been one of the more underwhelming wide receivers in his time in the NFL, truthfully. Cedric Tillman had a little burst, and then, you look after that, you've got Deontay Johnson, Jamari Thrash, DeAndre Carter, who's a returner, David Bell, who's done nothing. If they can get something out of Fanning this year, I think that would really help that passing attack, because, like I say, I don't think there's much at the wide receiver rooms. Do they bring Amari Cooper back, maybe? Keenan Allen's on the free agent market. I think they're one who could do with another presence of some sort, because expecting a same season out of Judy and Cedric Tillman as you got for short spells last year, I think is asking an awful lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, just talk about Njoku. Just if halfway through the year, near the trade deadline, if they're having a terrible year, could that be a player they could trade away who's is getting older in years and
I think that'd make a ton of sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then if you've got if you've got Fanning on your fantasy team, you'll be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, you'll be a big fan of that.
I was going to say I was a big fan of Harold Fanning, but yeah, he just went off last year at Bowling Green. It was out of, he hadn't caught more than 50 balls before in a season, caught 117 for over 1,500 yards for 10 touchdowns. So we just see if that does translate, and if he can, actually, two tight end sets could be quite dangerous for the Browns, and some big targets for Joe Flacco. Right, let's move on. Let's look at the odds for the Browns. Let's see what we've got for them. Our win total over under 5.5 wins for the Cleveland Browns. Where have you guys got them?
Under. I have them 2-15.
2-15. Oh, Joe.
Yeah, I've got slightly under. I've got them at 4 wins, 4-13, and that's beating the Bengals as one of them.
I think this line moved as well. I don't know if because it was this under, was it 4.5? I feel like it was 4.5, and then it might have moved to 5.5.
I also think, because I think the Bengals moved from 10.5 to 9.5 as well. So I wonder if the bookies have just seen. Oh, yeah, the Browns are going to win that first game automatically. So let's counterbalance that.
I was tempted the under 4.5. But yeah, if it's going to be under 5.5, then I've got them at 3 or 4 wins as well. I feel they had a real good opportunity to set themselves up this year and get a lot of really good players that could set them up for the future, but also make a big impact this year when they had all those picks in the top 100. And I just felt, apart from Mason Graham, I think they just pissed it all up the wall. So what they've got from the Jags for next year, if they'd have had a really, really good draft and got some real impactful players to then add what you're going to get from the Jags next year as well, that could set them up. And maybe by the end of 2027, they could be a really, really good team. it ain't gonna work out that way. They declined, tried to play it smart, and then pissed it up the wall. You should have just took Hunter or Carter.
Yeah, we should record this and play the next year the Browns, and then the year after that's the Browns. Like, they could have done all this and been smart, but just done before it.
So I think I've gotten 3 or 4 wins. Which might be generous. 3 and 14, yeah.
So we're all taking the no one making the playoffs, right?
Yeah, there's a big no to make the playoffs. So 17-2 or plus 850 to make the playoffs, and no to not make the playoffs. 16-1 on. 30-1 to win the AFC North, 100-1 to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, and 301 to be the team lifting the Lombardi Trophy in Santa Clara come February.
Not quite the team with the largest odds to win the Super Bowl, the second largest. So there's one team who's... Nope.
Have we covered the team? Have we already
Not yet, no.
New Orleans.
No, it is New Orleans, yeah.
Oh, dear. Oh, well, it's a spoiler for the NFC South.
They could play each other. Tyler Shook. Shudder.
In the
Super Bowl.
Wow.
I think it's more likely they're going to play in the Grey Cup, truthfully, but yeah.
You think they'd be that good that they'd get to the Grey Cup?
Well, I think your boys, Joe, the Argonauts, have registered Shudder as their exclusive contract if he ever wants to join the CFL. So.
Sorry, mate. I'm a Stampeder. I'm a Calgary Stampeder.
He's a Calgary Stampeder,
oh,
not a Toronto
Argonauts. Yeah. Why do I think you're in Toronto?
You tell me.
I know, but you said that on the. I
said that on the podcast last night. Yeah, I have no idea why I think you're in Toronto. Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, well. People think I'm in England, so I'm at least a little closer than
that. Excellent. Right, let's move on. The final team. Let's talk about good teams. The Baltimore Ravens. Clockwork Cars from Baltimore. Yeah, cool. Consistency. One of the best run NFL franchises continue to make moves to better their team, including Henry and Ronnie Stanley re-signing. Unsurprising, the Ravens make solid moves and do the right thing to put themselves in the best position to win year after year.
Yeah, this was a team where, looking at the off-season, when we're trying to think of headlines for the off-season, there wasn't too much because they just do Ravens things. There was nothing super exciting. There was like 1 or 2 moves, just, do what good franchises do. And yeah, I can see them being as consistent as ever. Maybe a bit of wobble at the beginning, as they always do, but I can see them, being in the playoffs, being in January again. And I think getting Henry, and I think definitely getting Stanley, there was some rumors that he might retire, so to get him back again on a fairly cheap contract again. I think this is the difference between them and the Bengals. There's a lot of players who like to go to the Ravens, a lot of veterans who go there, and it's just because they get treated right and they're able to sign players on cheap deals and keep them consistently challenging for I was going to say the Super Bowl. They very rarely get there, but it's get the playoffs at least.
Excellent. Headline number 2 for the Baltimore Ravens. Jair and Starks join the flock. Safe and secure. Starks, perfect partner for Kyle Hamilton to complete maybe the league's best safety duo. And Alexander joins in free agency after Lamar becomes the GM. Let's start with Starks, so the first round pick. Does that make the duo of Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks the best safety duo in the NFL?
Lions might have a word about that. Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, maybe. But other than that, I'm struggling to think of another one. It's certainly a really good one, let's be fair. I mean, we need to see when Malachi Starks on the field, I think we must say as well, because safety can be a tough one to hit the ground running year one. But Kyle Hamilton is very special, and Starks is going to get used well. I think Zach Orr, in his second year as defensive coordinator, I think he'll probably hit the ground running more so than he did in his first year. I think the defense had some growing pain changes from Mike McDonald's defense to Zach Orr for the first half of last season, but the second half of last season, that defense was on fire. Kyle Hamilton was, I dare say, if he played like that all season or been utilized like that all season, he probably would have been in the defensive player of the year consideration. So, adding Malachi Starks to it, I think. only a good thing, yeah. Whether he hits the ground running week 1, we'll see. But the potential's certainly there for, again, mid-season for him to be breaking out.
Yeah, I feel like so he just frees up Hamilton a bit more and just lets him just be in his best position where needed. As a rookie, so you see what happens. But he's replacing like Marcus Williams, who when he first joined, I think it was a great move by them, but he's not been amazing the last few years. And I think that Jay Alexander, that's just a Ravens kind of move. You just build on a strength where, the start of the year it was one of the biggest weaknesses where teams were just throwing on them. But as the season went on, that back end with Nate Wiggins didn't have the greatest start to the season, but he looks a good find, and Marlon Humphreys and a few of us there where this defense could be a top 5, top 10 certainly kind of a D, and you just add into it and get Jay Alexander when Lamar just tells the GM get that guy, he is the guy in charge. So I think both of them are great picks and great pickups by this Ravens team, which they seem to do every year.
Excellent. Let's move on for the Ravens. Super Bowl perch, can it be reached? The question will continue to be asked until it happens. With a nest full of talent, can the Ravens finally soar past the playoff hump? The way it ended last year, which obviously a lot of it was on Mark Andrews, but the narrative started going again, didn't it, about Lamar and then the playoffs and his record in January, and all that came up again. Ultimately, it's not going to go away until the Ravens get there or win it. What does this team have to do to get over the hump, do you think, come the postseason?
I don't know if there's a clear answer. To me, maybe apart from the Eagles, I think this is the best roster in football. And I think the Eagles have taken a step back from last year, ever so slightly. Catch the ball in the end zone in the playoffs. I don't think as a team there's much you can look at and say, like, this needs to be better, this needs to be better. Like, they are so well-rounded. That rushing attack is unbelievable. Lamar Jackson, since Todd Monken got there, has been the best quarterback in the league, and I don't think there's any discussion about it. I think the further you get away from last season, the more maddening it is that he's not MVP. I don't know how you could make an argument that Josh Allen was a better quarterback, other than Lamar's already won it, so we don't mind him not winning another one. I think if it was a blind vote on who was the best player, it's unquestionably Lamar Jackson. He done enough to win that game in Baltimore, in Buffalo, and he wasn't perfect in that game, I will say, but they still done enough to win it, bar one fluke drop. That, again, I think Mark Andrews had the most receiving touchdowns in the league last year, if I'm not mistaken. I might have just made that up. Let me fact check myself. But it's not a drop that you expect him to make. He got 11. I don't know what I've got leading the league in. Jamar Chase had 17. So
Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown.
Was it tight ends?
Yeah, he led tight ends. Yeah, but in my head it was something more impressive than that. But I mean, 11 touchdowns is still pretty impressive for anybody. And Mark Andrews, there was talk of him being traded throughout this offseason. I'm pleased that he's stuck with Baltimore because he seems like he should be there. I just don't think there's much that you can point out and say needs to improve. Like, the defense, second half season was a top 5-6 unit in the league. And like I say, since Todd Monken got there, that offense has been absolute rolling. Since Derrick Henry got there, it's been rolling at twice the speed. I don't know what they need to do other than not making mistakes.
I think they just need to play big in big moments. I think that's what the Ravens always do when, I know it was only week 1, but again, it was the likely not getting in against the Chiefs. And it's all like little things like that where, because how good the AFC is, because, the Chiefs are going to be there, the Bengals, the Bills, you've got 4 big teams and you've got other teams similar where all of these games are going to come down to moments. And I think the last few years, I think Lamar, I wouldn't say he's shrunk, but he's definitely not performed as he has in the regular season in the playoff games. I think last year he took a step that it wasn't on him that they lost. But I also want to see him, they've won because of him, because he does something crazy where he does in the regular season, but when it's against these playoff moments where you need to come up big. And I think Josh Allen has this moment where he did it for the Bills, but he can't get over the hump as well. He sees like big moments where that's the distinction between like Mahomes and the rest of them. So I think they just need to obviously get lucky with injuries and all that kind of stuff. But when it's a big moment, step up, make the play, and get your team to the Super Bowl. Because if there's one of them teams, if they get to the Super Bowl, they'll probably win a fairly easy game. I think it's just getting over that hump in the AFC.
Yeah. I'm worried. I think the noise is going to come quite quickly for the Ravens. I'm probably for Lamar because the start of the season is brutal at Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit, Chiefs,
Win.
Texans, Rams. 4 of them are at home, but that's a tough start. They could easily be 2-4. They might even be 1-5 and have lost some really, really close games. And the noise is because it started badly last season, didn't they? But not playing bad necessarily, but just obviously lost a few tight games, and then all of a sudden you're up against it. But they only lost 5 games in the whole last season. They could be 1-5.
But I think on the flip that
Going
if they
into the
start,
bye.
but if they start well, then they've got Bears, Miami, Vikings, Browns.
Yeah, it does ease
Jets.
off. Yeah.
But I mean, like if
Yep.
they start 3-2, for example, then they could be going away because you know how they are against. I know they've got Lions and Rams, but we always talk about Jackson's record against the NFC, where it's ridiculous. So
Yeah. Just I bet the Ravens might want to just hold off any sort of preseason bets in terms of winning a conference or that, because I think by the time we get to that bye, you might get better odds on them because they might have lost 3 or 4 games by that point. Just putting it out there, really. And then maybe, obviously, hit a run going into the playoffs. Might be able to get a good cash out. Not that we promote that sort of behaviour here at Good Teams and Great Teams Cover. Headline number 4 for the Ravens. A man must have a code. Great quote from The Wire. Tucker kicked out the building eventually after allegations emerged. Tyler Loop was picked up in the 6th round to replace the kicker. So this was the reason why I think I put this one on there. 1, for the Great Wire quote, and 2, we talk about how well run an organization the Ravens are.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a little bit is this maybe the one area they let themselves down in a little bit in terms of how they dealt with this? The fact that they then just drafted Mike Green with his history of allegations and sexual assault claims. Yeah, is this an area where the Ravens don't necessarily deal with something as great as obviously they do everything else?
Yeah, I would just say again, this is not an excuse or anything, but I don't know any NFL team which doesn't do this in terms of like they can say that they get rid of players, and Ravens were one of them teams who were like, if Deshaun Watson, we would never sign him, we would get rid of him, blah blah blah. But until it happens to a quote unquote star player or an essential player to a team, I think every team in the NFL is the same. They're just thinking the NFL has a moral code. I don't think it does. The teams, if a player's good, I think if Tucker was an average kicker, he would have been gone, as soon as these allegations came out. Same with Mike Green. If he was, if he didn't have that potential, he wouldn't have been drafted by them. So that's just my 2 cents. It's disappointing, but I'm also not surprised that any team would be willing to do that kind of stuff.
Excellent. We'll leave it at that then. Next up, let's look at the ins and outs. Maybe we should have put that one last. Key transactions. We've talked about some of them already, of course we have. Who kind of outside of what we've already talked about, or who we've already talked about, again, kind of who are we expecting to kind of have a real kind of positive impact for the Ravens in 2025?
They drafted a lot of players, didn't they?
They had a lot of draft picks.
I am interested to see if DeAndre Hopkins has anything left, because Flowers, Bateman, Andrews likely is a really nice first 4 pass catchers. If Hopkins can fill in a little bit, I think that'll really, kind of tip off the ceiling a little of that offense. Azui as well, coming in as a rotational cornerback, especially now that Jay Alexander's come in. I think these again are just like little moves that, depth is a real thing in the NFL. You look at Detroit last year, and having more depth wouldn't have helped them in the end because, they were picking players up on Wednesday and they were getting injured on Friday, and then they were trying to get another lineup out on Sunday. But like that shows like the attrition of an NFL season, and just getting these savvy veterans in who can be role players for you. I think again, it's just Baltimore 99% of the time doing things the right way. So yeah, those 2 veterans, I just think were like smart little additions. You can't expect DeAndre Hopkins to be DeAndre Hopkins, but can you expect him to, have 3 or 4 big catches in the season? Yeah, probably in big moments. You would certainly trust him on an end zone shot. I think he's smart enough to realize that he's going to have to be a role player. So, yeah, I think that's just smart roster management by Baltimore.
Yeah, we've talked about the big players. I think the John Tier Wester, he could be the punt returner or kickoff returner. So if you're in any of them leagues, one player who's not on here, again, I'm going off a bit of script, but Devontae Walker, who was drafted last year, apparently he's getting rave reviews. So I wonder if with the Hopkins kind of brought in, will that stifle that, or will he take over someone? So the Bateman who re-signed as well. It's just looking so loaded. You look at some of these draft picks. I'm looking where they're in the depth chart currently. They're like 4th, 5th, and you're like, are half of these even going to make it on the squad just because how good the rest of the team is? So yeah, we'll wait and see. But
it didn't make our graphic, but shout out their new backup quarterback, a perennial favourite of mine and Paul's, Cooper Rush.
Oh, Cooper Rush, of course. Yeah.
You like to see it.
That is quite because if Lamar does have to go down at any point, right?
Don't say it. Don't say it to the world.
Like
you could do worse.
I mean, you could do worse than Cooper Rush, right? But it's just a complete change in what you're doing in it there with Lamar.
It is.
Cooper.
But I think I trust Todd Monken to get 2 games out of Cooper Rush that don't derail the season.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cooper Rush. He's not going to lose you a game, is he? Like, he has to go in for them kind of spot starts.
And to be fair, just line him up behind Derrick Henry and let the big dog take over for a couple of weeks. And it is a name, a bit like Tez Walker, you mentioned there, Joe. Keaton Mitchell getting a bit of hype. He had a brutal injury midway through his rookie season. He is a burner. He has got, pace to burn. Justice Hill is a nice receiving back out the backfield, but if they rest up Derrick Henry any through the season, I'd love to see what Keaton Mitchell could do. On a team like this, it's going to be a front runner that's going to be, hard to load the box against. Because you've got Mark Andrews, you've got all them receiving weapons, like we said, you've got Lamar Jackson. I'd love to see Keaton Mitchell get some one-on-one looks with a linebacker, because I think he's a home run threat anytime he touches the ball. Just maybe a bit too slight to be a, every down back.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, if Lamar goes down, they're getting Tyler Huntley, who's still a free agent as well.
Where's Josh Johnson? I think he's in Washington. He'll probably come back.
I was about to say, I had a quick look where he was as well, just because it's just the standard backup to Lamar.
Is it Washington?
I quickly clicked on
I've seen he signed somewhere in the off-season. In my head, it was Washington, but it could be anywhere on his 32-team tour. While we're looking that up, my Mark Andrews fact, by the way, of players with 50 or more catches last year, he had the best touchdown rate. That's what it was. So it's still an impressive stat. I knew there was something impressive.
It is the Commanders for Josh Johnson.
There we go.
There you go. Excellent. Good stuff. There we go. Cheers, Joe. Let's go into the odds for the Ravens. So over under 11.5 wins. So 20-23 over, 20-21 under. So I'm doing another Michael Jordan flu game here. Yeah, where have you got the Ravens, guys?
13-4 for me.
Yeah, I've got them over as well. What have I got them as? I got them 14-3.
Yeah, I've got them 12, 12-5. I just think that start of the season could be tricky, and we've been through this where they've had a bit of a gauntlet to start and they've kind of stumbled out of the block. So I think they're going to drop a few games there. Not necessarily like 1-5 was ridiculous, but I think they're going to lose 2 or 3 of those games, which I think is fair. Chiefs, Lions, Bills, they're all good teams, as are the Ravens. But yeah, so I just think you don't have them much room to go, do you, down the way. So I had 12-5. Probably still win the division to make the playoffs. Yeah, 11-2 on, massive odds on. And any of us, none of us got obviously with those numbers the Ravens to miss. You can get just short of 4-1 to on the Ravens to miss the playoffs if you so fancy. 4-6 to win the division. 17-5 to win the AFC. and 6.5 to 1, or 13 to 2. Don't know why I said 6.5 to 1. 13 to 2 or plus 650 to win the Super Bowl. This is where I'm thinking if I do fancy the Ravens, the odds might just drift a little bit by the time it gets to the bye. And that's where I think you might get some good value on the Ravens. Possibly even for the division as well. Like, let's say by some miracle, the Bengals get out the blocks. And the Ravens are 2 or 3 games behind them, 7 or 8 weeks in. You'll get a lot better value than 4 to 6 for them to win the division. Which I still think they'll probably do.
Yeah, because let's be honest.
Betting 101 here.
Yeah, let's be honest. We're all going to bet on Browns week 1, so the Bengals will win and start off hot. Just go.
Yeah, we're all going to be on
yeah,
the Browns. Yeah, I mean, whose line is it anyway? What's the what do you think? What's the line?
Is it in Cincinnati?
I'll tell you in a second. It is. No, it's in Cleveland.
In Cleveland, I think it'll be 3.5. Cincinnati.
I think it'll be 7.
5.5.
Right on the middle. Perfect.
Yeah. Split the difference. Excellent. Right, let's finish off having a look at our best bets. Excellent. So, yeah, I'll top mine too. We mentioned it already in the Steelers. I just think the Steelers are going to find a way to get to 9 wins again. I don't know, but, it's by hook, by crook, whatever it is. Yeah. They're going to get to at least 9 wins because Mike Tomlin. I think I mentioned it. We were talking to Jimmy earlier. They will get some more consistency out of the quarterback position. That'll help them a little bit. Make sure the defense doesn't have to do it all, but the defense is still going to be really, really good. I think certainly for 3 quarters of the season, that's going to be enough to get to 9 wins. I think. And then I've got Jamar Chase, Offensive Player of the Year. Most years, if you win the Triple Crown, you'd probably get it, wouldn't you? I think he's owed one. So if he has a really, really good, solid season again, and he's, right up there, which I expect him to be, and the Bengals have to sling it about a bit and all that jazz, I like 9 to 1 offensive.
Do you know what's wild? Oh. As soon as I was saying that this was your bet, I was going to say, who was last Offensive Player of the Year to repeat? I forgot he didn't win it last year.
He didn't win it, yeah.
Of course he should have won it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously
it was Marshall's fault, by the way.
Oh, nice.
I was looking it up myself because I was curious, and I was like, Marshall Faulk actually won it 3 years in a row.
What was that? 2000, 2001, 2002?
99 to 01.
Oh, 99. So that's fair. But yeah, I just think, it was a freak year, wasn't it? That's obviously Saquon.
Yeah.
And you had Derrick Henry there as well, yeah.
I'm saying Jamar Chase should have won it. Saquon was so good last year. I don't want to make out like it's silly that he won it. It just feels like you look back at it now as like, man, Jamar Chase was. He said Triple Crown winner. How often does that not win the LPOY? In my head, he won it. Literally, I was going to ask you who's last player to repeat. So
yeah, but yeah, I like Chase because I think again, he's going to get, Byron injury to Burrow, Byron injury, significant injury to him. He's going to get the targets. He's going to get the opportunity to So
and they're going to be throwing it all there because
absolutely. So those are mine. Byron, over to yours.
Very different to yours on the team one. Steelers under 6.5 wins, 9 to 4. So as discussed with Jimmy, I just kind of hate this roster. I don't like Arthur Smith as a play caller. I think him and Rodgers are heading for something that doesn't end especially well. And might as well go to my other my player one as well because it kind of goes in line with it. Lamar to go over 3,500 yards passing. Obviously, which would be a hell of a season. And Rodgers go under 3,250 passing yards. That's a 5-2 double. Again, since Todd Monken entered the league, Lamar Jackson has been best quarterback in the league. He throws the ball incredibly well. Last season, should have won the MVP. He was just incredible. If he plays 14 games, he gets there, in my opinion. If Rodgers plays 17, he gets 3,200 yards. That's a given. I just don't think he will. I think, like I kind of said with Jimmy, the mobility is a huge issue. His inability to get his way out of pressure or throwing early is an issue. If the Steelers are as bad as I think they are, there is no reason to play Aaron Rodgers post-Thanksgiving. There's no reason for him to play post-Thanksgiving, let's be fair. Does he want to end his season, his career, his Hall of Fame career, being chased around and on a sub-500 football team? I don't think so. In cold Pittsburgh. No, he's very prideful, and he won't want that to happen. But Father Time is undefeated, and he is a 40-plus-year-old quarterback. A year removed, again, I did say, from his Achilles injury. Maybe that does improve through time. Maybe it doesn't. So, yeah, I'm taking him on the under yardage. If he misses a few games, then I think he doesn't get that pretty clearly. And I think the likelihood is he doesn't play 17 games.
Yeah, I mean, the field at MetLife has got the opportunity to do the funniest thing in week 1, hasn't it, I guess?
It really does.
Yeah. Joe?
Yeah, you talked about one of my bets quite a bit, not to put it on, but I've got the Ravens to win
Mate.
the AFC at 17-5. Yeah, I think they're going to win it this year. I think, I just think they've got the best squad in the AFC, so I've gone there. And then I'll, with the teaser, I've got Quinton Johnson to get 10-plus rushing touchdowns at 13-2. It was the same odds for Caleb Johnson for the Steelers, so I was flip-flopping between the two, but I think Quinton Jenkins is going to be the ball carrier more for the Browns. And yeah, like I said, I think he's going to get quite a lot of work in that team. So yeah, for him to get 10-plus rushing touchdowns as a rookie, it's a nice 13-2. So that's where I've gone.
As much as I downplayed his ability to be a Nick Chubb, I love that bet. I think 13-2. It's quite funny. One of my fantasy football friends, Jeff Crisco, who podcasts Football Absurdity, which I would recommend. Very funny guy on social media as well. He referred to Quinton Judkins when he's doing his projections as a touch monster. And I said maybe we shouldn't call any Cleveland Browns touch monsters because it doesn't bode well with their history. But yeah, I think Quinton Judkins is going to maybe not lead the league in touches, but maybe be close to leading the league in, backfield share of touches, because I think they're just going to pound him into the ground. And yeah, 10 rushing touchdowns, I don't think is a crazy expectation. That feels very doable. I love your team bet as well, Joe. On our early season bets, I have the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, so I certainly have them winning the AFC as well. And 17-5 seems a nice price to me.
Excellent. Good stuff. Right, gents, that wraps us up. Excellent. So thanks everyone much for joining us for our AFC North preview. That is the halfway mark, isn't it? That's 4 divisions done, 4 divisions to go. Thanks again to Jim English from Gaelic Gridiron for helping us out, having a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll be back next week with the yet to be determined division, because we've not sorted out our guest yet for who's coming on, so it will be one of the 4 remaining divisions. We'll just see which one it is. But as always, drop us a follow. Good Teams with Great Teams cover over on Spotify for the pod, also available on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Overcast. You can also see the video version over on YouTube and at GTW_GTC on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok. That's the lot in it. Yeah. That's them all. Follow to keep up with everything else, all the posts, and everything else. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.